We're letting you go." That's what she said. Her tone soft, her smile professional, like she was offering me herbal tea, not shredding my livelihood. And here's the kicker. I just buried my father. 48 hours earlier. She looked at me like I was the one being unreasonable, like I'd ruined her schedule by choosing the exact wrong time to grieve. I didn't yell, didn't cry, didn't ask for pity, because I already knew if they were betting on me being weak because I was quiet, they were about to see just how loud silence could get. Let me ask you something. Have you ever done everything by the book, only to watch someone rip the book up in front of you? I had proof. My time off was approved in writing. The funeral dates were known to everyone in the department, and still they fired me, citing unexcused absence. A complete fabrication. But what they didn't know is that I had already started documenting, already started protecting myself, already started planting seeds, because this wasn't my first betrayal. It was just the last one I'd let go unchallenged. I said, so stay with me. In the next few minutes, I'm going to walk you through how a single email saved my entire case, how a silent ally in the office delivered a twist that turned everything around, and how I walked away, not just with justice, but with something far more powerful, my dignity. This isn't a sob story. It's not about revenge. It's about strategy, about reclaiming your voice when people think you've gone quiet for good. So if you've ever been made to feel replaceable, if you've ever buried a loved one while pretending you're fine at work, this story is for you. And hey, if this hits close to home, tap that little subscribe button, or like this video as your quiet way of saying, I've had enough too. Because what happened next wasn't in their handbook, but it was written in mine. I wasn't new. I'd been with the company for 6.5 years. Mid-level operations manager, the person who knew where everything was, even when no one else did. I wasn't flashy, didn't gossip at the coffee machine, didn't show off during meetings. But I was reliable, the kind of employee who never missed a deadline, who covered for others without being asked, who stayed late even when no one noticed. And maybe that was the problem. See, in a company full of performers, I was the quiet backbone. And people like Miranda, they don't like backbones they can't bend. Miranda was my boss. Early 40s, a smart, sharp dresser, and always smiling like she knew something you didn't. She was the type who hosted Empowerment Mondays with fruit platters, then cut 2 people's hours on Tuesday. She was obsessed with optics. How things looked was always more important than how they felt, especially when it came to emotions. She'd once said to a colleague going through divorce, I understand, but leave the drama at the door. We've got Q4 to deliver. Yeah, that kind of leadership. My father had been sick for a while, stage 4 cancer. It was slow, then suddenly fast. You know how that goes? He declined over a long winter and passed quietly in April. I was with him when it happened. Just the 2 of us and a beeping heart monitor that eventually didn't. It was a Friday. By Saturday morning, I'd emailed Miranda. Subject line, bereavement leave request, April 10th to April 13. She replied within 10 minutes. Approved. Take care of yourself. We've got you covered. Miranda. I remember staring at that sentence longer than necessary. It almost felt genuine. Spoiler, it wasn't. I flew to Ohio to arrange the funeral, handled the obituary, organized the service, cleaned out my father's apartment by myself. He didn't leave behind much, just some military books, old jazz records, and a photo of me at my high school graduation in a dented silver frame. On the morning of the funeral, I wore his favorite color, navy blue. I gave the eulogy, talked about the way he whistled while fixing broken things, how he used to call me his compass. I flew back home the next day. I was tired, hollow, but ready to return to work. I thought the worst was behind me. Walking into the office that Wednesday morning felt surreal. The fluorescent lights buzzed louder than usual. My desk had been cleared. No photos, no mousepad, no Post-its, just a blank screen. Then came the meeting request. Please meet in conference room B, 10:30 a.m., Miranda. I walked in. Miranda was already seated. Her laptop was open. HR rep beside her, silent like a statue. That's when she dropped it. "We're letting you go." I blinked. She continued. "3 unreported absences in violation of policy." I stared at her. "You approved the time off." I said, voice low. "You emailed me." She smiled, tight and professional. "I'm afraid we have no such record in the system." And just like that, my father wasn't even cold in the ground, and I was being erased. But here's the thing about being underestimated. It gives you the element of surprise, because what Miranda didn't know was that I never delete emails, and I don't forget how people make me feel when I'm vulnerable, especially when they smile while they hurt you. So while they thought I'd crumble quietly, I was already logging into my backup drive and pulling up an email that would change everything. I sat in my car in the parking lot, stunned. The email was right there, time-stamped, signed, perfectly clear. Miranda had approved my time off. But now, HR was pretending it didn't exist, pretending I was just absent, unreliable, disposable. I stared at my phone, fingers frozen above the screen. What did she think, that I wouldn't fight back? I forwarded the email to my personal account, then I backed it up. Twice. And then I started pulling the thread. That night, I messaged Zoe. She'd been quiet at work, head down, never challenged Miranda, but she had kind eyes, and more importantly, a memory, like a vault. I asked if she remembered the Slack thread where I'd shared I'd be out for my dad's funeral. She replied within 2 minutes. Yes, I reacted with a blue heart. Let me check the archive. 15 minutes later, she sent me a screen recording. Slack history. My exact message. Her heart emoji. 3 others responded too. Then came the third piece, the meeting calendar invite. I'd blocked those 3 days on my company calendar. The system auto-notified all managers, including Miranda, but when I logged into the calendar that night, it was gone. The time block had been removed. Only one person had access to modify manager-level calendar events. Miranda. It hit me in waves. This wasn't a misunderstanding. This was deliberate. She'd approved my leave, waited until I was away from my father's funeral, deleted the trail, and framed it as unauthorized absence to justify firing me. And the worst part? She did it with a smile. I cried once, for about 7 minutes, alone in my kitchen over a mug of cold tea, not because I lost the job, but because I finally saw her for who she was, because grief is hard enough without someone weaponizing it against you. Then I switched modes. No more grieving in silence, no more hoping for decency. I pulled out a folder I hadn't touched since college, workplace retaliation laws, employee rights. I called a friend, Janelle, who worked for a nonprofit legal center that helped women in hostile work environments. I told her everything. She paused only once, then said, "You know this isn't just cruel, right? It's illegal." We set a meeting for Monday. In the meantime, I started laying my own breadcrumbs. I posted an update on LinkedIn, vague but sharp. Sometimes silence isn't absence, it's dignity. And when someone mistakes your grief for weakness, they've just handed you the blueprint for their own undoing. It got traction. Old colleagues reached out. Some said, "Are you okay?" Others said, "I always had a weird feeling about Miranda." Zoe messaged again, "I don't want to overstep, but I still have the email she sent you about the leave. It was CC'd to the general inbox. I can forward if that helps." It helped a lot. And I gathered. 1. The original approval email. 2. The Slack record. 3. The calendar log with deletion timestamps. 4. Zoe's forwarded email from the shared inbox. 5. A witness statement from a coworker who overheard Miranda mention, "We'll have an opening soon," before my dad even passed. The puzzle pieces were falling into place. The final straw? An internal HR note, accidentally sent to me instead of Miranda. It read, Please advise how we respond to redacted if she brings up the calendar or Slack messages. Have legal prepare generic statement about time off policy being manager's discretion. That was it. They weren't just gaslighting me. They were prepping to cover their tracks. Oh, Ors! I didn't respond. I just sent everything to Janelle. And what we planned next would make Miranda wish she'd never touched that calendar. I didn't rush. I didn't send a dramatic email. Didn't post a fiery rant online. Because this wasn't going to be a scream in the parking lot kind of revenge. This was going to be surgical ass. With Janelle's help, we built the case quietly. I was advised not to make direct accusations yet. Let them think I was retreating. That way, no one would go back and scrub anything else. Meanwhile, Janelle prepared a formal notice of unlawful termination, citing retaliation for legally protected bereavement leave, document tampering, hostile work environment, and potential violations of FMLA Family and Medical Leave Act. And here's where things started to shift. Janelle knew someone in a local journalist network, a woman named Ari, who ran a weekly segment on workplace abuse titled Invisible Scars. She reviewed the materials and said, "This isn't just a story, it's a pattern. And I bet yours isn't the only one." I gave her permission to investigate anonymously. She posted a single question on Twitter. "Have you ever been punished for grieving?" The thread exploded. Back at the company, things were unraveling quietly. Zoe told me Miranda was off in meetings, paranoid, snapping at interns, checking the team chat history obsessively. She knew something was coming. Then came the first knock, an inquiry from the State Labor Board sent to corporate HQ, followed by a request from the legal clinic for Miranda's email metadata records. So, that's when they realized I wasn't bluffing, that I hadn't walked away quietly, that the weak, grieving employee they thought they fired had just become their biggest risk. 1 week later, I received an offer, a tidy little package, 3 months severance, a non-disclosure agreement, a clause that I must never mention Miranda or the termination again. Oh, and a final line stating, "This is a gesture of goodwill, not an admission of wrongdoing." I didn't laugh. I didn't cry. I simply forwarded it to Janelle and said, "Buckle up." That weekend, Invisible Scars aired a feature story. Blurred names, altered voices. But the story, unmistakable. It detailed a company that fired an employee 48 hours after burying her father. Despite written approval of leave, it referenced altered digital records and suggested a pattern of retaliation against vulnerable employees. No names were mentioned, but everyone knew, especially those inside the company. The Monday after the story aired, Zoe texted, "There's a mandatory HR ethics training scheduled. Miranda didn't show up today. No one knows why." The next day, I received a formal letter, not an email, delivered to my door by courier. This time, the offer was different. Full reinstatement, back pay, written apology. Miranda no longer with the company, and no NDA. I said, "No?" Because the battle was never just about the job. It was about not being erased, about showing them I wasn't afraid to stand up, even if my voice shook while doing it. Instead, I made a counteroffer, a public apology, an internal audit of Miranda's prior terminations, a company-wide policy update clarifying bereavement rights, a $10,000 donation in my father's name to the grief support center that helped me. They agreed to everything, and I walked away. Not fired, not silenced, but vindicated. And just when I thought it was over, a message showed up in my inbox from someone I didn't expect, and suddenly, the story wasn't just mine anymore. What? The email came at 6:41 on a Tuesday. Subject line, "You don't know me, but I owe you thanks." It was from a woman named Valerie, former project lead, worked under Miranda 2 years before I joined. She said she'd watched Invisible Scars, heard the story, knew the blurred voice, felt the pattern. She did it to me, too. Valerie wrote, "My mom passed. I took 2 days. Got a warning letter the day I came back for failing to secure backup coverage. The next month, I was placed on a performance plan I couldn't pass. I quit in shame. I thought it was my fault." She attached screenshots, documents, emails, metadata, all with Miranda's name on them, all matching the same playbook she used on me. Valerie had never told anyone, until now. I forwarded her email to Janelle. Within days, the legal clinic filed a secondary complaint, this time including multiple complainants. Zoe added her name. So did one other ex-employee. And the company? They scrambled. Their new HR director, someone I'd never met, reached out to me directly. "We are initiating a full investigation into past managerial conduct. We would like your permission to share your documentation with compliance officers." I granted it, but only under one condition: that they follow through, that they actually do something with the truth. A week later, I was invited to speak, not at the company, at a state labor summit. The panel was titled, "Retaliation Culture: When Grief Becomes a Liability." I nearly declined. I wasn't used to being seen. I was used to disappearing quietly, politely, like a good girl should. But this time, I said yes. And I told my story. No rage, no vengeance, just facts, just pain, just proof. And people listened. Meanwhile, back at the company, my LinkedIn post hit 200,000 views. The article Ari wrote for Invisible Scars was picked up by a national HR journal. And Miranda, officially disqualified from holding a leadership role in any partner company, under their revised ethics charter. Tintersenso. They didn't name her in the memo, but everyone knew. Even she did. Oath. Then came the final full-circle moment. I received a letter, yes, a real one, on company letterhead. Not from PR, not from legal, from the new CEO. It read, "We failed you. Not just by allowing a toxic culture to thrive, but by expecting your silence as part of your professionalism. You have every right to be angry, but instead you were strategic, and because of that, we were forced to face ourselves." Inside the envelope was a formal recognition certificate. "In honor of your integrity and courage, we have named our new employee support grant, the Compass Fund." My father used to call me his compass. I cried in my kitchen. Again. But this time, not from betrayal, from relief. Justice isn't always loud. Sometimes it's quiet. Like an email at 6:41, or a fund named after a daughter who finally learned to stand still so others could find direction. And I used to think being professional meant being quiet. That strength meant never showing how badly something hurt. That if you just did your job, followed the rules, kept your head down, you'd be safe. But I wasn't safe. Even with receipts, even with approval, even after my father's funeral, I still got cut. And for a while, I thought maybe it was my fault. That if I'd just written one more reminder, one more follow-up email, maybe I could have prevented it. But no, some people don't need a reason to hurt you. They just need silence. And this time, I didn't give it to them. After everything, I didn't go back to corporate, not because I couldn't, but because I chose not to. I took the severance, the public apology, and the respect I earned, and I built something of my own. I started a workshop for women in mid-career transitions. People like me, loyal, high-performing, overlooked. We meet twice a month. We talk about policy, protection, and pay gaps. We write letters. We make noise. We heal strategically. And sometimes we laugh. Because once you've survived enough heartbreak, you learn that laughter isn't weakness. It's rebellion. I kept that certificate. The Compass Fund. I framed it and placed it next to the last photo I ever took with my father. I like to imagine he'd be proud, not because of what I won, but because I refused to lose myself in the process, because I remembered who I was, even when they tried to erase me. And maybe that's the real victory, isn't it? Not the headlines, not the lawsuit, not even the apology. But the fact that I no longer feel the need to shrink to keep others comfortable. I take up space now. With my story, with my truth, with my voice. And no one's firing me from that. Deshalb, so if you've ever been let go unfairly, if you've ever had your grief dismissed or your boundaries ignored, you're not alone. You don't have to scream to be powerful. You don't need rage to make change. Sometimes, all it takes is one clarity documentation. Just enough anger to get organized. Let's talk about it. Drop a comment. Have you ever been punished for doing the right thing? Or had to choose between your mental health and your job? You can write out your story. Or just post, I remember whom you are seeing if you're not ready to share. Either way, I see you. I hear you. And if this story meant something to you, hit like to let others know it's worth their time. And subscribe. Not for me, but for the next version of you who might need to hear the next one. Because up next, fired for job, hunting after 3 years with no raise, but she didn't see this coming. Let's just say she thought she had leverage, but she forgot I'd built the whole damn ladder.